Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Netflix's The Cuphead Show.
Muggsy, what we need is a little fun and adventure. Hey there, my name is Nate, and a big welcome and hello to all the fellas and dolls tuning in for this spoiler-free review for The Cuphead Show Season 1, which hits Netflix February 18th. I'm not going to use that voice the entire review. So big thanks to Netflix Canada for getting us this season in advance for us to review. Now, please, if you would be so kind, join me in welcoming our beloved host of the podcast. He's known as the Big Cheese around here, the real McCoy, my buddy, my pal, my Mugman, the sensational jazzman, Justin Lawrence.
Yo, how you doing, Muggsy?
I was like, I don't know if yo-yo is that a 1930s thing? Do they say? And if you're Muggsy, am I Muggsy? Are we all Muggsy? How are you doing this fine evening after this wonderful adventure through Inkwell Isle?
I'm excited to chat about it. I was definitely, It was a surprise and delight. So we'll definitely unravel that as we go.
Yeah, we weren't expecting this to drop the way it did, and we just got the screeners. And again, thank you so much to Netflix Canada for that. But before we blow our wigs and share our thoughts with you, that's a 1930s thing, blow our wigs.
Blow our wigs!
Before we share our thoughts, let me give you a little bit of background. Directed by Adam Paloyan, and executive produced by Dave Wasson, CJ Kettler, and the original creators of the game, Chad Moldenhauer and Jared Moldenhauer. Based on the award-winning video game that smashed onto the scene with a gorgeous retro animation style, The Cuphead Show is a character-driven comedy series following the unique misadventures of lovable, impulsive scamp Cuphead and his cautious but easily swayed brother, Mugman. As the two scour their surreal homeworld of the Inkwell Isles in search of fun and adventure, they always have each other's backs, unless there's only one cookie left, in which case it's every cup for himself. The Cuphead Show combines nostalgic delights, side-splitting gags, and a healthy dose of heebie-jeebies, especially when a ridiculous, weird nemesis, the devil himself, arrives on the scene to toy with our heroes. The show stars True Valentino, Frank Tadaro, Luke Millington Drake, Joe Hanna, Gray Griffin, and Wayne Brady. So, Justin, I think we should start with what we thought was swell. I think there's, for me at least, I don't know about you, most of what I have to say is pretty darn swell about this show. I kind of want to just start with music, though, right? Where the show kind of starts off, and I think that's the first impression anyone watching the show is going to get is just how excellent the music is in this series.
Throughout the show, it does adopt a very 1930s traditional piano score that feels very character of the time and has that nostalgic hit. But I was actually really surprised by the intro. The intro feels very modernized in a way, but still hits of that vintage nostalgia, if you will. So I enjoy the intro. I also love the look and feel of it, but we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, I love the little ballad that is being sung over top of the visuals as we're being introduced to the characters. And again, for me, as like I guess a spoiler, I haven't played the game. I've played one level, so I was very interested in this just because of the style and aesthetic that it really was leaning into.
Yeah, it sets you up for what to expect from the show as a whole. And yeah, Ego Plum is the composer for this, who's worked on SpongeBob SquarePants before, and just does such a good job because, like, the old cartoons in the 1930s, like, there was never a moment where there wasn't music. A lot of the times, for a lot of cartoons at the time, the music, that was all it was. The music was how you emphasize what the characters are feeling. And you feel that in this show. There's so many moments where it just does such a good job transitioning on the fly. And yeah, man, that theme song performed by Giselle Andrea I want to say Becerra. It's done in that 1930s style, and she just nails it. I love how Cuphead and Mugman, they sort of have like a back and forth where she sings to them and then they sing back to her, it's just perfect. It's just
nice fourth wall breaking stuff that we get to throughout. So and it's just another aspect of how the theme song sets us up. But you brought up the visuals, the look and feel. Let's get into that. Let's talk about that, because I think that's going to be kind of the main takeaway for a lot of people with the show. Well, yeah, for sure. And for me, it was probably the biggest reason why I wanted to check it out. I really love how the series adopts that 1930s rubber hose animation style, similar to cartoons that we would see from like the golden age of Disney. And there's a lot of Disney aesthetical references throughout, as well as thematical elements throughout the entire series. So it feels very inspired by, if you will. But it takes it further. It mixes in that Ren and Stimpy aesthetic from the artist, I'm going to probably butcher his name, but John Kirkfalus. He's French-Canadian, but his aesthetic style has, it has this over-exaggerated expressions that, tend to lean a little bit more on the darker side. But, the show never really loses its foundation of understanding it's a kid's show, but it does really go bold and then at times a little dark, but never too dark. And the color palette, the color palette itself, at times it's very muted, which feels very 1930s, like very desaturated. But then there's instances where there's just vibrancy, and it's really a tradition of kind of bringing old meets new. And, even just to the idea, like throughout every single episode, I noticed that there's just layers of grain and dust and scratches that are just overall the picture, just to give, again, that 1930s vintage nostalgia. I just think that they blended so much of the old into this sort of new aesthetic. It feels nostalgic while also feeling fresh, if that makes sense.
No, I get it, dude. Like it's a perfect blend of, it's like modern extreme movement with the animation, but then it's got that classic aesthetic, right? And so I think, even the way every episode starts, where it's like the theme song, and then we get like sort of the title card, which is that classic Looney Tunes inspired title card, and it all of it makes a lot of sense when you see who is behind the show. I mean, the co-executive producer Cosmo Surgison, he worked on the most recent like Mickey Mouse shorts and Rocko's Modern Life. Oh, right. Cool. And so you can totally see those. Or you brought up 100%. The idea of Ren and Stimpy. Adam Paloian, who was the director, he worked on SpongeBob, right, for Nickelodeon. And so you get these and it's a lot of why I was laughing throughout the show was even just the extreme facial expressions where they're really contorted or they're really stretched out, and it just it was so much fun to watch these characters just physically react to the things that were going on around them, and you can see how well they managed to not only give you that look and feel, but again, as you said, keeps it modern. It keeps it engaging for like a younger audience, and I just
100%. It doesn't age itself. It doesn't lean so hard into that nostalgia. But I think like even for someone like myself who really is drawn to animation for its style, that's why I love so many different animated properties, because of the aesthetic that we always get, and everything is just very different, and how you pointed out, like just the bold expressions that can be conveyed with just the flip of a dime of how exaggerated and contorted some of those looks could be. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, I looked up an interview with Adam Paloian, and he's on an interview with El Cid in a show called Shot Talk on YouTube, and this was in 2018, and he talks about how he wants to get away from the traditional style of animation that we've seen in things like the modern SpongeBob, the modern Disney stuff, and this is kind of a really smart way to take that first step into that direction. And he ultimately talks about how he wants to establish a new style, a new way of showing off different versions of animation that can very much be his own or his studio's own. And I think this is a really good step in that direction to kind of still pay homage to what you had before, but then blend it. It's just, so good.
Well, and that's the power of animation, is it literally is paying homage to what has come before it. And, the point that you make about trying to find his own visual style that's unique, there's a couple moments throughout, I think even in a couple instances when we open in on their little house, on their little cottage, it's 3D. There's 3D elements blended in to these two-dimensional environments. It feels very fresh and new from that perspective, where, I think in certain instances when SpongeBob did it, it was more for a gag and joke, but this feels very much an aesthetic decision to kind of take things into a three-dimensional element. Like even just the opening with the cup rotating, right at the beginning of every episode with the Netflix logo, with the Netflix title. I think that again, it's just finding new ways to blend old and new, and I feel like this series does it really, really well.
It nails it. I want to talk about another thing I think it did phenomenally, and it's this cast. I think the performances are so well done. Cuphead and Mugman's voices are fantastic. I love their accents. True Valentino and Frank Todaro have such a great chemistry on the show, and even when their dialogue is so quick, and it's that would be kind of tough for some voice actors to kind of pull that off, like that old really quick snappy style, but they just execute it so well that like these characters they don't have voices in the game, so like I had no necessarily like I didn't have any expectations for it, but at the same time I can't imagine them with any other voice after this. Like after the first episode I was like, that's Cuphead, that's Mugman. Like they fully nailed it.
Yeah, no, I think performances across the board were fantastic. Luke Millington Drake as the devil, I thought was so funny. He has this sort of over exaggerative, very Stewie-like portrayal to his devil.
Gosh, yeah.
And I loved how exaggerated he was, and how he could change from being really high up and then really down. With his vocal range, and I enjoyed blending that animation style with his voice performance. I thought was really good. Wayne Brady, the Wayne Brady episode where he is King Dice, I believe his name is.
Yes,
I thought that was great. I thought that having him there. At first, I didn't realize it was Wayne Brady. Until the end credit, and I was like, okay, yeah, I could hear it.
But how perfect for the casting for that character, who he's very much a musical game show host, and like that's
right.
Those are the highlights of Wayne Brady's career, essentially, right? So far, at least. Like, yeah. I'm sure he's got a lot more to give, but the idea that, like, yeah, he's very much a musical guy. He's very much a comedian, and then he also has done game shows in the past. It was just so perfect to have him on for that.
It's a perfect casting.
So good. I also wanted to shout out. He's not in it for as a ton, but Elder Kettle, Johanna. I just think he's so funny, just the way that they managed to kind of really emphasize his character beyond just the sort of the tutorial screen of the game, right? So
right, absolutely. Yeah, well, again, not having played the game, I didn't know that his character was of that importance, but I loved how he was sort of the stern adult that looked after them. And he was the senior citizen, if you will, right? Yeah. He's obviously their caregiver. I'm not really sure what their relationship is. I guess it makes sense for a Kettle to have.
I think he's their grandfather. Yeah.
He's
something like that. Yeah. But yeah, man. Speaking of the game, then, I think you can really see the game's influence come through not only on the characters, but like the world that Cuphead and Mugman traverse throughout the series. Like, you see them running, around, and they're narrowly missing projectiles, or they're jumping over like buzzsaws and all sorts of traps like that. Like, I just thought it's a really cool way to still give people that played the game a sense of this world beyond just the game itself.
Right, and that's what I feel like this does more than anything, right? It's rounding out that world. It's helping to give more depth to it, so that, maybe it gets another generation of kids to go play it, right? Like, I'm not really sure who the audience was intended for with maybe the game and the series, given that, like, I have a cousin who's, I guess, about like 13, right? And was playing it, but he's seriously into gaming, and like you were talking to me about Cuphead, so I wasn't surprised that he was playing it. And I remember trying to play at least one level, and I did not like it. It was like too difficult for me.
Right. Well, and so this is the thing, because the show does such a good job, as I've been saying, like, it brings in guest characters and utilizes the different games' bosses throughout this season, and it really fleshes them out. It really fleshes out their motivations, why they're acting the way they are, and it brings it back to the game. And I think that's kind of something that they maybe have an opportunity with, not necessarily on the show side, but on the game side, because there is a simple mode. They call it simple mode, not easy mode, in the game. But it makes me think they should really add an easy mode, because if they are going to be getting kids into this show, right, you get a whole different group of viewers that they're like, oh, I want to play the game, but it's going to be too difficult for them. Like with the simple mode, you can't actually finish the game. So I think, how incredible would it be if they went back and said, okay, you know what, we're gonna Cuphead Show eyes, if you will, the game, and maybe give us something that is a little bit more accessible for kids. I don't know. I think it'd be a good idea. And Justin.
Yeah, exactly. I'll definitely play that easy mode. But I also think it's interesting too, because you see this sort of, maybe it's a dependency that game inspired series or shows or movies feel like they need to integrate the qualities of the game into it. Like I thought it was interesting with even something which is really bad, but battleships, how in that movie it is obviously trying to take itself seriously, but then there's a moment where they're actually fighting their enemy in a battleship style game. So
right,
it's
like they're using the battleship board.
And it's like it's integrated in. So it felt smart, but it also felt like unnecessary because we knew the concept, but they had to add some sort of element of the game into it. So all that to say, it's nice to hear that the parts that this series brings over for the game are more the character-based stuff and the world-based stuff to really kind of help round out that world and hopefully inspire people who haven't discovered the game to go and play the game and get frustrated with it. So,
well, hopefully, I mean, again, try simple mode. I think there's something to be said about it, and I am looking forward to the DLC for it, called The Delicious Last Course, and I'm hoping maybe they add something in there that we don't know about to make it a little bit more accessible. But listen, like a cat in the slammer who's about to draw his last breaths, let's get to our final thoughts and review score for the show, which we'll be rating on a scale of 1 to 5 souls.
I knew you were going to do souls, man. I knew you were going to do that.
I'm the devil. Justin, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so like I was saying throughout this review, I don't come from a background of appreciating the game. I come from a background of appreciating animation and the art style, and that's really what stood out to me about this series. Again, blending old with new, adopting that 1930s rubber hose animation style while bringing in the sort of exaggerated, over-the-top expressions from Ren and Stimpy feels, again, old meets new, and I love its color palette. It felt very of its time with the film grain and the scratches. I love that it leans hard in trying to feel of the same vanity and nature of the golden age of Disney animation. I appreciated that, and I think it takes it in some new ways. This is a kid's show, of course. I think that there were some parts that felt a little dark, but I don't think it ever lost itself in that darkness where it went too mature. But I do know that probably there's going to be a mixed bag of audience members that are going to watch this, from kids to mature adults. So that being said, like I couldn't really find any faults with this series, and being someone that just appreciates the aesthetic and the idea that it does know what it wants to be in it. But again, this was season 1. This was all about world building and really kind of rounding it out. I'm excited to see what they can do with season 2. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 souls.
I feel very similar. First off, I'm going to sound like a broken record, because, or I guess for this show we should say a broken radio, but we talk about all the time on this podcast about a show having a clear vision and being confident in what it sets out to do. And this show is dripping with confidence. Like this show knows exactly what it needs to do. And it's rare for video games to jump into another medium and execute on such a level that it actually enhances the source material. Right? Like we recently, I think the only time that I can think back to where we got that recently was actually again from Netflix, with Arcane. Right. Where, but I think where that show didn't really get me excited to try out League of Legends, this show does actually make me want to jump back into, the grueling difficulty of Cuphead. So I am excited for, as I said, for that DLC. But I think all that being said, that's what makes it so hard to review this, because again, it sets out what it sets out to achieve, it nails. And then anything else would just be me comparing it to other animated content that it's not necessarily trying to emulate. Right? Like the show does deliver on its promise of transporting you back to the 1930s through its visuals, through its audio, through its music, through its voice cast, and it nails that so well. But it's just it tends to lack like a sort of a greater sense of narrative through point. I don't think it really does have. It has a narrative through point, but it's so razor thin. Like there's shows like Adventure Time or Steven Universe that they do go off of like the situation of the week kind of storyline, but they also do have a bit more of a thread. And it's a little unfair to compare because we've only gotten one season of this show, but it's a minor gripe, but I think the big thing for it is I can absolutely see them getting there. I can see them achieving a similar level of sort of moral depth for these characters, and again, they're such silly characters, but I think they still can put a little bit more heart in their story. And I think what it would do for overall for these two brothers is it would make them a little bit more memorable. And I think it would also allow them to reach a wider audience, but beyond the initial what we loved about it, which is how well it transports us back to the 1930s. They have an opportunity there, so I can't. That's the only thing holding me back from giving this perfect, because it absolutely is stellar, and it's definitely something that anybody who's a fan of animation, who's a fan of Cuphead, who's a fan of that game, you need to watch all 12 episodes, and you're just gonna have such a fun time with it. So I can't criticize it too much, but that would be the only little thing, and that's mostly just me being hopeful for what we get from another season from these folks. But for what the Moldenhauers created, and how good a translation this is of that, I am so stoked. I'm giving this show a solid 4.5 out of 5 souls. I think I'm right on board with you.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that this was a pilot season for this series, like you said. Like it is season 1. And I think what they've done really well is establish the world, which you really want to do in a first season. You've established the relationship of the characters. And to your point, I hope season 2 will lend itself as an exploration of probably something that could have more of a through point.
Well, we've talked about the fact that they drop these shows as bingeable content, right? And how, this show is very much structured in the olden ways of, again, very fitting, but the olden ways of, you would tune in and, the Cuphead show's on. Awesome. I'm going to watch it. And I might be watching episode 5 and not seeing episode 2 and 3, but it doesn't matter. And it very much doesn't matter for this show. But I do think that I would like to see it get to a place where it does, especially if they are going to be putting them out on Netflix as entire seasons. I think they have the opportunity to get there. But all right, Mugs, listen, Mugs, the jig is up. And that's it for our spoiler-free review of the Cuphead Show Season 1. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, feel free to leave a 5-star review. Feel free to leave... I'm getting the accent. The accent's coming back there. Feel free to leave a 5-star review, and if you want to write into the show and tell us what you thought of Cuphead once you've seen it, well, I'm going to use this fancy new thing called a telephone. Beep, boop, beep, beep. Well, they wouldn't be beeps, right? It would be like a... Yeah. Would that be it?
Yeah.
I don't even know how telephones work. Operator, get me Justin to tell them how you can reach us.
Certainly. They can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. Wow, that was so strange. My voice just...
It was, we went back in time. Keep in mind, we have a ton of other episodes covering the latest movies and shows out now, with our most recent watch club for the Book of Boba Fett now finished. We are looking ahead and getting pretty stoked for Moon Knight coming up, which we'll be doing another watch club for every single week. And you can also tune in every single Wednesday to hear our thoughts on the latest trailers and news from around the Geekosphere. And oh my gosh, with the Super Bowl and everything happening,
this week is going to be insane.
It's nuts. There's so many mind-melting trailers on the internet. So if you want to hear us talk about them, please tune in. Don't be a chump and give those episodes a listen. My pal, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this spoiler-free review. And as we say, well, I love ya.
Peace.